Okay, so this is Conspiracy Theories, Imposter Syndrome, and Distrust in Phil Studies by Katherine Hawley. And, yep. I just spilled water. Oh, that was bad. Oh, that's really bad. I spilled water on stuff I really shouldn't have spilled water on. Oh well. It was bound to happen one of these days. Okay. Screw it. We're going. And for this is for Rethius, even if this is not what Rethius wanted at this point. I just had to find something that wasn't going to take 3 hours. Okay. Conspiracy theorists believe that powerful agents are conspiring to achieve. It's only water. It's not that bad. Thank you, though, Valpo. Conspiracy theorists believe that powerful agents are conspiring to achieve their nefarious aims and also to orchestrate a cover up. People who suffer from imposter syndrome believe that they are not talented enough for the professional positions they find themselves in and that they risk being revealed as inadequate. These are rough characterizations of two very different states of mind. The conspiracy theorist looks outwards to the world, whilst the sufferer from imposter syndrome looks inwards. A given conspiracy theory may have many adherents, whilst each sufferer from imposter syndrome is concerned with a different individual herself. And conspiracy theorizing can promote group cohesion and enhance self-regard, whilst imposter syndrome is typically isolating and stressful. Yeah, and it was one of the things, like, to write a paper like this is interesting because there's a lot of people in philosophy. I don't know if it's that way in other areas, but a lot of people in philosophy get imposter syndrome. They don't think they count themselves among the great philosophers. So like imposter syndrome is in academia a lot, but I know a lot of philosophers struggle with like imposter syndrome. They're like, I'm not a great philosopher, and now I'm like got this like good job, and it's like I'm like people are looking at me like I'm wise. It's like, well, I did what people told me I was gonna do. So it's interesting, but yeah. Okay. Nevertheless, there are also intriguing parallels between the two phenomena insofar as they involve distinct patterns of trust and distrust, distinct interactions between the content of a belief and the evidence which tells them for or against that belief, and perhaps distinctive epistemic practices. For example, oh god, what'd I do? There we go. Sorry, I apologize. I didn't have the paper up on screen. Okay, so yeah, for example, both conspiracy theorists and sufferers from imposter syndrome think that they have special insight into what's really going on, insight which others lack. In contrast, neutral observers typically regard such thinking as irrational or confused. Moreover, both are primed to explain away new evidence seemingly contrary to their views. Yeah, I'm sorry, evolve yourself. Welcome back from your lurk. Moreover, they're contrary to the views. After all, conspiracy theorists are not perturbed by the fact that superficial appearances continue to reveal no conspiracy. To them, this is just more evidence of an effective cover-up. Likewise, sufferers from imposter syndrome are not moved by the fact that superficial appearances continue to suggest that they are talented high achievers. To them, this is just more evidence of their intellectual fraudulence. Yeah, this is the thing. You have to be able to properly sort of see the world, and it's hard to do. It's really hard to do, and this is part of the thing. It's like when you have like self-doubt, you can't see yourself as other people see you, and if you have an inflated ego, you think you, as the conspiracy theorists do, they think they have, they see the world as it really is, even though everything is apparently not what it appears. The purpose of this paper is to explore these parallels in light of philosophical and empirical research on the two separate phenomena, but without minimizing the significant differences between them. The task is worth undertaking for reasons which go beyond any intrinsic interest it may have here. First, as so far as I can discover, the separate bodies of research have not previously been in dialogue, so cross-comparison may suggest further fruitful lines of empirical investigation. Second, the comparisons enable us as philosophers to think more carefully about a range of normative issues, for example, about the irrationality or rationality of conspiracy theorizing and of imposter syndrome, about the types of social epistemic environment which may encourage or discourage either phenomenon, and about the distinctive difficulties encountered when trying to convert people away from either conspiracy theorizing or imposter syndrome. That's interesting. I've tried to get people to recognize that they were not as I have people who were imposter syndroming, and I've said stuff to them, and I'm not gonna say like I did anything like special or interesting. I did do stuff that other people wouldn't say, because like I have a different perspective like than other people, so I said different things. And it's an interesting thing. Like they can accept what I said, but like they don't see things as I do. So it's like it doesn't really matter what I say. They accept that there is other perspectives, but why does that matter to them? Evolve Yourself says, once one accepts a faulty premise, the inference chain that stems from it usually leads one astray. Yeah, that's the thing. Once you get that first idea in, that's what, like, it's so pernicious. That's absolutely right. So it's like you have to not have that first idea get in, but like that's easier said than done, and usually it's already too late. Like you have to get back out of this. And I guess that might even be one of Wittgenstein's points, where you have to like lead the fly out of the fly jar. But like the way flies fly into a fly jar, they fly up in the bottom. Flies can't fly downwards, directly downwards. They can't drop. So they can't actually go back the way they came. And so it's like you sort of had to like, lead them back somehow in a way that they can't go. But that's the fly jar analogy from Wittgenstein. Now he was describing that as philosophy, is that you're leading someone back out of a way that they really can't get themselves out of. Okay. Arthur says, I will focus on the doxastic and epistemic aspects of both conspiracy theorizing and imposter syndrome. That is, I will regard them primarily as patterns of belief, or more broadly as patterns of belief formation, maintenance, and updating in the light of available evidence and justification. This is, of course, a simplification, most obviously for the case of imposter syndrome. We cannot fully understand imposter syndrome without understanding its relationship to behavior, to anxiety, and to affective states more generally. After all, someone who believes she is not as talented as others take her to be, but who is quite happy with this situation, would not normally be classified as suffering from imposter syndrome. Conversely, there may be sufferers from imposter syndrome who do not in fact believe that they are talented, but find themselves unable to relax into the effective attitudes and behaviors appropriate to that belief. I hope to explore these aspects of imposter syndrome in other work, but we'll stick to the doxastic for now. And what follows, I first discuss conspiracy theories, then discuss imposter syndrome before exploring the parallels between them. Okay, fun. So we get to talk about conspiracy theories and people thinking they see the world right when everything is to the contrary. And then we can flip that around for the imposter syndrome folks. In 1994, sociologist Ted Gerstle wrote, there has been no published information about the prevalence of belief in any of these conspiracies concerning, for example, the assassination of JFK or the claim that AIDS is a government-induced epidemic. Nor has anyone addressed the question of to what extent belief in conspiracies is a generalized ideology trait, that is, how likely are people who believe in one conspiracy to believe in others. Nor has there been any previous attempt to discover the psychological or sociological correlates of belief in conspiracies. A quarter century later, things have changed. Gerstle's article has classic status in a burgeoning empirical literature on these topics. In the same period, alongside developments in psychology and political science, a small but active group of philosophers has explored conceptual and normative issues surrounding conspiracy theories. Dentith and Keeley review recent literature, while Cody collects some important earlier papers. Across all these disciplines and beyond, discussion of conspiracy theories has come to seem horribly urgent during the past few years. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, practical, like applied philosophy matters now. Like, this is one of the funny things. My grandma always said this. But, like, he said, like, after war, what do you do? Like, you need, like, 'cause this is what's going on in Ukraine at the moment. You're going to have all these people trained in, like, shooting guns and killing people. But once the war is over, you need to go back to something else. And this is one of the things. It's like, what are you going to do once the political storm dies down? You have to have people that understand what the fuck is going on. And so this is like terribly important right now that we keep some smart people looking at the conspiracy theorists and, like, you know, all the things that are happening in politics, to see that, like, we have analysis by people that were there, so that, you know, people in the future can go back and see what the hell happened. Within philosophy, one central question has been how best to define the term conspiracy theory, and in particular whether to assign it a neutral or a pejorative meaning. All parties agree that to qualify as a conspiracy theory, a claim or belief must have a distinctive content. Approximately speaking, this is that some significant phenomenon can be best explained by positing a conspiracy, a group of people working together for nefarious ends who have successfully covered their tracks by generating a false received wisdom. Shane says, "Hey Shane, what's up? There is no need to know what's going on outside of mathematics. STEM courses only. Death to all liberal arts." Yeah, exactly. This is the problem. Like, and everyone should go follow Shane. If anyone does not know Shane does history and sociology and has excellent streams on, like, just any aspect of history. You can go ask and he'll go on a little tangent, and you can find out stuff about why the world has ended up the way it is. Historically speaking, at least. Yeah, exactly. But this is the problem. If you have everyone that's good at tech, then you have no one that's good at, like, knowing what tech is to do. As the Ian Malcolm quote from last time that Shane was good enough to share with us, you're so concerned with whether you should, not with whether you could. You forgot to ask whether you should. You spoiled it. Oh my God. It's because people are idiots. I did not ever think of that. Oh my God. Evolve yourself. Technology will be our moral guide. Yeah, it's like putting your lives in the hands of engineers. I think that was another Ian Malcolm quote. It's like, oh God, what have we done? It's like you put stuff in, like, they're very good at certain things, but if you have to ask what should we be doing with ourselves, you don't go ask someone who's been working on technology. They're looking at a different problem, which is fine, but it's not the same thing. It's like, go ask someone like Shane, who has seen the history and looks at what has happened. People want to make AI so they don't have to decide things for themselves anymore. Yeah, it was the robot who told me. This is exactly it. It's just, what the funny part about this is, the history of, like, this stuff is like people punting responsibility. It was the ghosts. It was God. It was the devil. Like, the devil made me do it. It's not me. It's the devil. It's toxoplasmosis made me do it. I saw someone had a bumper sticker that said that. I just laughed my ass off. The toxoplasmosis made me do it. Yeah, and evolve yourself is correct. Most people will do a lot of stuff to avoid thinking. A lot. So, but this is the thing. It's a lot easier to chalk up problems to some external thing that's out of your control and therefore absolves you of the responsibility than to do the hard work to figure out what went wrong and what you can do better. Yeah. And it is hard. Thinking is very hard work. And it's, frankly, most people are not up to it. They just don't want to do it. Do something else. Have some fun. Yeah, so if we define conspiracy theory in just these terms, then it is an open question whether many or most conspiracy theories are false and whether many or most are believed on insufficient evidence. To answer these questions, we might examine conspiracy theories individually and try to establish their various credentials, or we might investigate a larger class of conspiracy theories, trying to understand whether it is generally likely that powerful individuals can and do control major events while subverting public perceptions of social reality. The plausibility of this claim will vary between different historical periods and between different societies today. Get drunk and watch the game instead. Evolve yourself. I do that a lot. And this is exactly Shane's point. How plausible it is that... Oh, whoa. What happened there? The plausibility of any of these things will vary between historical periods. And if you have not looked at history at all, you don't understand what plausibility means. You do not understand what plausibility means if you don't look at the history at all. That's the problem. People don't know history and the difference in societies. And so they have no concept of what the plausibility means because they don't actually know how anything gets fucking done in history or today for that matter. And only if you know what's happening in history and today can you actually understand what plausibility means. But people don't want to think that way. They want to think that they know what plausibility is. But plausibility relates to the society. What can be done now or what can be done anytime. So it's like, this is like a really good sentence that the authors put in. Yeah. The alternative theoretical option is to define conspiracy theory such that conspiracy theories have that distinctive content, but in addition are by definition false or perhaps by definition unjustified. Shane says, I know exactly what is plausible. Jordan Peterson uses that word all the time. Yeah, and that's exactly it. You tell the lie that you need to tell, and that's the lie. Because of course he has no idea what's plausible, but that's what you tell people, and then they believe you, and then they accept what you say. So that's amazing. I did not know that was his line, that you know exactly what is plausible. I mean, that's completely ludicrous that he would say such things, but that's how you get people to glom on. I mean, that's the classic thing in philosophy. It's you know that you know nothing. It's the idea that you know what's plausible is the complete opposite of the philosophical stance, at least the Socratic stance. So it's like, it's just ridiculous in some sense to say that. I mean, I know what's plausible sometimes. Yeah, in like limited areas, I know it's plausible. Like, I know a few things, but like no more. I don't even know if I know nothing. Yeah, I mean, it's possible I know nothing. Like, you could say like other like forms of this, but the idea that you say I know exactly what is plausible runs roughshod over every possible formulation of like epistemic humility and basically wisdom. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's a crazy statement in some sense. And it's so wrong that like it makes for a good lie because it can't possibly be true. But like the idea that like people are willing, but it's so crazy that it's over the top. And once it gets over the top, it's not really a lie anymore. It's something else. And then people will again accept it. But that's a different problem. It's the old, I don't know if you guys ever read the book Matilda by Roald Dahl. That was one of my favorite books when I was a kid. Actually, it's still one of my favorite books for that matter. But it has a great line. The secret of the Trunchbull is that she never does anything halfway. She always goes over the top. And it makes everything that she does so unbelievable that like people, in some sense, can't accept what she does. Oh, Evolve Yourself. It's a small book, and it's basically a kid's book. So you will blow through like this. You could like finish it probably in the course of like an hour or two, if you put your mind to it. But I completely recommend it. Roald Dahl is a phenomenal author, and yeah, and it like if you get the original, it has like the old school Roald Dahl illustrations in it. It had like his the illustrator that did illustrations in some of his other books, so it's got the super cute stuff. That reminds me. Do it. Like, it's great. Like, that would be a great thing to read. Like, it's hilarious and stuff. And you're gonna get, what's it called? You're gonna get some serious Harry Potter vibes. Like, I'm sure J.K. Rowling had looked at this book beforehand. Okay, yeah. I mean, you do your stream, but like, seriously, like, Dahl is a great writer. There was a story. Dahl was a fighter pilot in World War II, and he was friends with the great one of this. I think it was Forrester, who was already like considered a great writer, and like Forrester, Dahl got shot down in World War II, and so he was like in hospital or whatever, and recuperating, and he like wrote a story or something, and he gave it to Forrester to he said, hey, I thinking about doing some writing, could you take a look at the thing I wrote? And this is like one of the top writers in England or whatever at the time, and Forrester like read the thing, so oh, sure, I'll get back to you in a few days, and gave it back to him and said the thing's perfect, like there's nothing that can be changed here, you just like publish it right now. So it's like the guy knew how to write. Okay. So yes, go read Roald Dahl. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Big Friendly Giant, The Witches, Matilda, all good stuff. Okay. On this picture, conspiracy theories are always pathologies of reason. So when we investigate the epistemic merits of some theory about a group of people working together secretly, we thereby investigate whether it is a conspiracy theory or whether it is a hypothesis worth taking seriously. This makes sense of the way in which conspiracy theory is used as a pejorative in everyday discussion. Few of us regard our own beliefs as conspiracy theories. A theoretically fruitful definition need not mirror ordinary usage closely. Nevertheless, the further we move from ordinary usage, the harder it is to engage with the political and practical debates which ultimately motivate philosophical work in this area. Another issue in the philosophical debate has been whether to focus on epistemic assessment of conspiracy beliefs or instead to focus on the broader pattern of thinking associated with conspiracy theories. For example, Kassam argues that we need the notion of intellectual vice in order to understand what is problematic about conspiracy theorizing. A given conspiracy belief may be justified in the light of the evidence actually possessed by its subject. Nevertheless, we can criticize the believer's shoddy epistemic practices, for example, overemphasizing fringe sources and failing to seek out a wider range of reliable voices. Kassam argues, with reference to psychological research in this area, that conspiracy theorists tend to exemplify the vices of gullibility, selective cynicism, and prejudice. These intellectual vices do seem to be associated with conspiracy thinking, at least in the paradigmatically bad cases, but they cannot fully explain why people adopt conspiracy theories, since they make no reference to the specific content of conspiracy theories. Indeed, Kassam does not suggest that they are the only explanatory factor. Gullibility, selective cynicism, prejudice can lead us astray in a much broader range of beliefs. For example, these vices may lead us to think of politicians as only looking out for themselves, even when the evidence does not support this, such a belief does not amount to a conspiracy theory. Likewise, these vices may lead us to believe that homeopathy is effective, again without endorsing a conspiracy theory. But one of the things about this might even be that the people who are prone to conspiracy theories might also have these other beliefs. So, that would actually lend credence to the idea that there are intellectual vices. What they call it? Intellectual vice, yeah. But, so if conspiracy theorists also believe this stuff, that politicians are only looking out for themselves, and they will also sort of believe in homeopathy, then that might say, hey, look, then the vice is accurate. It is getting all this stuff. I don't know. Broadly speaking, academic research beyond philosophy has tended to focus on the question of why people believe in conspiracy theories, looking for answers in individual psychology or societal conditions according to discipline. Such research presupposes that belief in conspiracy theories requires some kind of special explanation, that the phenomenon is both significant and prima facie puzzling. In turn, this seems to presuppose that belief in conspiracy theories is typically irrational. After all, when people form beliefs in ways which we endorse as rational, we usually don't seek causal explanations in terms of motivated reasoning. The analogous approach is criticized by advocates of the strong program and the sociology of scientific knowledge. Their symmetry thesis demands that we seek the same type of explanations for others' beliefs, whether or not we endorse them as rational. Yeah, so this is the thing. If you're going to call these people irrational, then you can't also say that everything they're doing is wrong, because you have to look at the way that they formulated it, and you have to assume, you have to give them a principle of charity in some sense. If you don't, if you're just calling them irrational and saying everything they do is irrational, there's no charity there, and you're not understanding what the is going on. But if you're also asking for more things, like a motivated reasoning from them but not of yourself, then you are also doing them wrong, because you are treating them uncharitably by requiring a higher standard for them, that they also have to have a motivated reasoning, and you see causal explanations in terms of their motivated reasoning when you're not looking for that for yourself. So Shane says, I've got theory that people who tend to go way overboard with conspiracy stuff have done so after they've experienced some form of trauma that they associate as coming from or caused by some established structures, social institution, or structure. I would agree with that, actually. There was a guy at work that would fit that bill. He was this is years ago, so he was a very smart dude. He was into QAnon, and it was obvious to like people that like some of the stuff he was saying was wrong, and he was smart enough to point out, be like, that's wrong, man. And he would like, he'd brush it off. But like it was one of the other guys I was working with, he was saying, look, he is a minority. This was a few years ago when like, minorities of course in the US aren't treated very well, but there was some of like the social unrest had started to pick up. And so he was saying, look, it looks like he's, this is how he's reacted due to the social unrest here, is that he's sort of trying to like, understand the world as more rational. He's trying to figure it out, and he's sort of applying the sort of, he's overdoing it, that he thinks he's understanding stuff more than he can. And I think like there was something to that. I mean, I don't know exactly what he was thinking, but I think the other guy was right. He was internalizing the social trauma that had, has befallen minorities in the United States. Yeah, so Shane, same thing. Yeah, so Shane's got, so Evolve Yourself's got some interesting friends also who has a slightly different experience. But yeah, so I definitely agree that what Shane says at some times is like correct. But like I don't know if there's any one, we're not going to find a universal like structure to this. Unless that only happens in like abstract metaphysics, like actual people, more than one way that people can get can become, believe different things. All right, a review of recent psychological research into conspiracy theorizing distinguishes 3 types of motives for belief in such theories. Okay, here we go. Epistemic, existential, and social. Epistemic motives include a desire to preserve one's existing beliefs, to avoid feelings of uncertainty, especially in the face of large-scale complex phenomena. Conspiracy theories offer a ready catch-all explanation in terms of intentional human agency, an explanation which minimizes arbitrariness and loose ends. Oh wait, are we in like an English journal where they say minimizes, not minimizes? Interesting. Shane says at the root of it, it just seems to me that there is a desire for some people to believe that the world works according to very specific, predictable rules, and when it doesn't, they can't cope with it. Yeah, I think you're hitting this right now. The author is getting to this stuff, so like 100% the case, at least in some people. Okay, so this is the epistemic desire to preserve, well, not desire to preserve one's epistemic beliefs, but desire to have the ability to rationalize stuff, and that's part of this. Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. Okay, existential motives arise from people's need to feel safe and in control, for example, by seeing themselves as perceptive and not easily fooled. The conspiracy theory says that there is a cover-up which has effectively deceived most people, but that believers in the theory are the exception to that rule. Social motives include a desire to belong and to think highly of one's own in-group relative to others. Conspiracy theorists often strongly identify with others who share their beliefs, and again, the theory spells out the ways in which believers are more perceptive on this matter than are ordinary sheeple. All right, and just point out they dropped sheeple without even a flinch. This body of research on the motives for conspiracy thinking gives a central role to the distinctive content of conspiracy theories, explaining their attractiveness in terms of the picture they paint both of the world at large and of the believer and his or her social group. Interestingly, the review authors suggest that although there is good evidence that conspiracy thinking is motivated by these features of conspiracy theories, it is much less clear whether belief in conspiracy theories actually does make believers feel more certain, safer, or more high status. For example, in this sense, conspiracy theories might be seen as an ironic or self-defeating manifestation of motivated social cognition. Shane says, the most out there guy I know had a brother that died very young from a sort of weird health issue, and it broke him. He couldn't accept that his brother just had bad luck, so he immediately turned it into the hospital killed his brother, and now he believes in blood drinking, infant killing Illuminati. Yeah, so, I think that's entirely one way that this goes. Basically, the one way it goes is, what did they call it? This is the existential thing that they were saying here. people need to feel safe and in control, and the fact that the guy's brother died made him feel like, it broke him in the sense that he felt out of control, and so he needed to like make up a story to rationalize it, and that's the need to feel safe and in control. I think that the authors are getting here. I was just thinking there's some other thing here too. The other part is the in-group thing. I think the social is not, this is not a 100% accurate, saying you want to think highly of one's own in-group. And they're pointing that out right here, that the conspiracy theories might be seen as an ironic or self-defeating manifestation of motivated social cognition. You hear stuff about like racist stuff, and it's basically like they always have drugs, and there's always something to do, and there's always like something there. So it's basically giving people an outlet to escape whatever demons they have. So it's not just that there's a social to feel a desire to belong. It's an escapism from the other painful stuff in their lives. Evolve Yourself TV says a lot of parents that I know have children with autism blame vaccines for their kids' disabilities. And Shane agrees, he's seen that too. Yeah, and that's the problem. They need things that will give them an enemy. You have to focus on you have to have something to focus your anger and your frustration at. And actually that's a good point. I don't know if they're going to say that here. The idea that you need an actual target for things when there might not be like an exact problem. Like we just don't have a grasp of everything that happens in our world, and people can't accept that. And that's a good point, that there is like you need a unique enemy, and you can't, if there isn't one, people will find one. So that's a feature of our epistemology. We need like objects to look at. We can't just like have abstract thoughts. They aren't real. So you need like a specific blood drinking Illuminati that you can focus your anger at and your hate at. You can't just think of like the world just screwed me, because that doesn't. No one wants to think that. Shane says, I think the social in-group concept is a powerful force once you get into the conspiracy group. It might not be what drives people to the conspiracy, but it can absolutely be what keeps people in the conspiracy. Oh, yeah, that shows up on the... Oh, there's a great thing. I've never watched it, but there's a Flat Earth documentary. And I think like a lot of that, like you can't get out of like religious cults. You can't get out of conspiracies, because it becomes your whole friend and identity. And once you get in, and you can't get out, because it would basically take everything you have from you. And this is what I was saying also about the thing before, is that it's an escapism, that you get to escape from whatever you were before, and you get into this. But again, if you're using it for escapism, then you have the social group, and then you can't. The whole point you went there, you can't leave that, because then you're going back to where you were beforehand, and that's worse. That's like what you left that for this. And so it feels like the conspiracy elevated you, and then you'd be falling back down to where you were beforehand. So yeah. Where was I? Okay. The content of the conspiracy theories is significant, not just for explaining why such theories are adopted in the first place, but also because it underpins a range of epistemic practices associated with conspiracy theorists, practices which are more specific than vices such as gullibility. It is not unusual for us to seek out and value evidence which fits with our pre-existing beliefs, but when we believe in a conspiracy theory, the content of what is believed has direct consequences for how we should handle evidence. Belief in conspiracy theory is self-perpetuating in several respects. Someone who believes a conspiracy theory believes that powerful agents have conspired to keep the truth on this matter hidden. If this is the case, then readily available evidence is likely to be misleading, and it will take investigation and special insight to find distorted evidence for the facts. Thus, believers in conspiracy theories avoid reliance on official sources of information, since they expect such sources to be misleading. Moreover, they have a ready-made explanation for any purported counter-evidence which may come to their attention, for example, when non-believers try to talk them round. Of course, it looks as if the conspiracy theory is false. That's just what they want you to think. The gnosis, yes. Finally, the conspiracy the conspiracy theorists seek and prize anomalies which seem to conflict with the official versions of events. Keeley refers to errant data in this context. Conspiracy theorists typically concern large-scale and complex social phenomena, and even a highly accurate, explanatory-rich official story will inevitably leave some loose ends. The non-conspiracy attitude is to regard those as marginal peculiarities. I guess it's just a coincidence. For the conspiracy theorists, those loose ends are overwhelmingly important since they provide rare opportunities for us to see through the cover-up to the real facts below. One of the many reasons why conspiracy theorizing is an intriguing topic for epistemologists is that such patterns of thought are not inherently and inevitably unreasonable. It is indeed true that if there is a successful cover-up, then this will be difficult to detect, and occasional anomalies will have heightened epistemic significance. If official sources of information have been co-opted, knowingly or unknowingly, to assist with covering up the truth, then they are not reliable sources of information. There is an internal coherence between the content of conspiracy beliefs and the epistemic practices which they reinforce, at least once the belief is adopted in the first place. This coherence is part of what makes it difficult to simply reason people into rejecting their own conspiracy theory beliefs. So one fun thing about this self-reinforcing thing, like that guy Mike, I can call him Mike, it doesn't matter, there's a million Mikes out there, at work, was that Mike, we were arguing once about lawyers not telling the truth and stuff, and like he was studying to be a lawyer. And then so he was making all these claims, and like then he was saying something about like the government like lying, and they're all lawyers and they're lying. I'm like, yes, but you're a lawyer. Why aren't we believing you? And then like all he could do was like he sat there and smiled at me for a sec. He was like, he didn't have an answer. I was like, you're reinforcing everything you say, but then it undermines you too. And I was like, yeah, dude, you lose. He actually stopped talking about his conspiracy when he saw me coming. He thought like I was actually like so anti him. I was like, I'm not anti you. I'm just like, I don't want to hear your bullshit though. It's like I don't put up with it. And then I was just walking along. He's like, you heard me talking about Trump. I was like, I did not hear you talking about Trump. I'm doing my job, man. Just walking this way. Like, I don't care if you're talking about Trump. I mean, this was like 2017 or something, like before any of the real trouble. Involve yourself. Asking a conspiracy theorist what information would be necessary to come to light such that they would think their position is always interesting. Yeah. Like, what are they going to say? They're not going to say anything. Like, or they're going to say something, strange. Shane says, oh man, but so many people that are deep in the conspiracy junk absolutely equate their ideas with their identity. Yeah, that's part of the problem. If you attack the idea, you attack them. Yeah, that's 100% right. And it becomes part of like how they see the world. So it's like you can't even tell them that they're wrong because this is how they see the world on top of that. So it's like you're attacking their identity, and then what they see is obviously is true in the world. And it's like, well, that's not the case. And they're like, no, it is the case. And you're just not, you're basically talking across purposes at that point. And so it gets even harder because it becomes their identity, and they they don't even like classify things as the same way as other people. So it's like we're talking like just orthogonally. Okay. There is much more to be said about conspiracy theories on this front, and much has been said by philosophers in this area, but my key aim is to make the comparison with imposter syndrome, so it is time to move on. To summarize so far, conspiracy theorizing involving a distinctive pattern of distrust in standard cases of information which other people rely upon, such as mainstream news media. It also involves a heightened degree of trust in one's own capacities to see through the facade and understand what's really going on. This is reflected in psychological research about the motives for conspiracy theorizing. It may also involve an exaggerated degree of trust in certain non-standard sources of information, for example, websites run by other conspiracy theorists, and in the evidential weight of residual anomalies. Yeah, I mean, we just had the Alex Jones trial come to a head, and where Alex Jones basically admitted that he made up everything. He never was telling the truth. And then he was angry that people don't believe him now that he's apologizing. It's like, well, screw you, it's too late. But it's like, why were people believing him anyway when he's a known liar? But like they wanted to believe. It's like, why would you do this? But once you get onto these non-standard sources of information, it's hard to go back. Okay. Anywho, What is imposter syndrome? Roughly speaking, imposter syndrome is a condition suffered by people who have external markers of success, such as high grades and professional accolades, who nevertheless believe themselves to be inadequate. The term imposter syndrome is used very widely in non-academic literature, but psychologists studying this topic prefer the term imposter phenomenon. In my discussion, I will use the terms interchangeably. Psychologists Suzanne Imes and Pauline Rose Clance identified the phenomenon in their clinical work with professionally successful women, publishing a first article in 1978. Clance published a book aimed at sufferers, Imposter Phenomenon, in 1985, and there is now a huge amount of popular writing on the topic. Valerie Young's The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women is an impressive example of the genre. Neither imposter syndrome nor imposter phenomenon features as an identified disorder in the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistics Manual. So the DSM-V doesn't actually list this. It lists a fuck ton of other stuff. Why not? That's weird. But psychologists have generated extensive research into its prevalence and correlates reviewed, for example, by Sakulko and Alexander and by Calvart. My apologies. Do I still have the DSM-V right here? I had an old DSM-V like right next to me. It's probably somewhere around here. Yeah, whatever. It's probably nearby. Like conspiracy theories, yeah, he had to do that because they made him. He tells the truth on air. I don't know if you could standardize a diagnosis for that. Let me tell you something, Shane, about the DSM-V. There's a new DSM-V that came out, and I was flipping through it, or I was flipping through one of these other ones, and there's something called video game addiction. If you look at the definition for video game addiction, basically every single person that has a phone nowadays is a video game addict. There's a lot of problems with the diagnoses in there. They could easily do it. Would it be a good diagnosis? I don't know, but have they done like things like this in the past? Oh yes, they have. I was looking and I was like, if you're like playing a video game on your phone for like any amount of time, like every day, they're like, you're addicted. It's like, nah, probably not. But yeah, that they have standard diagnoses don't make them good, but they could have done it. Yeah. Like conspiracy theories, imposter beliefs have a characteristic content that the believer isn't really talented enough for the professional position or accolades she finds herself with, and typically that others have not yet noticed her lack of talent. So, some sufferers from imposter syndrome believe that others know of their incompetence and are merely pretending otherwise for political or compassionate reasons. Luddite Shane agrees that everyone is addicted to phones. Okay, well that's fair, but like, what actually is the definition of addiction then? Like, we are all addicted, but is this like good, bad? What is it? Yeah, now I want to find the fucking book. It's like not the time to look through the books. Imposter syndrome involves more than such beliefs. A comprehensive account would also include its affective and behavioral aspects. Who died last year at 50? What's up, Aris? Everyone go follow Aris if you are not following Aris yet. He's another philosophy streamer. He does ancient and ethics and tech ethics, so you can do some of the... Oh, Katherine Hawley died last year? Oh, I did hear about that. I completely forgot. Damn. Okay. But yeah. Good people die. It's annoying. But yeah. I was going to say something, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. What's up, Aris? Hope you're well. I hope you're settling into your new place out in the very bright sun. Alright. Moreover, imposter syndrome may often be characterized by a mere lack of beliefs in one's own talent, as opposed to an outright belief that one lacks talent. Mere doubt on this front can certainly be damaging, but for simplicity in this paper, I will ignore these subtleties and discuss imposter syndrome as founded on the belief that one is inadequate for one's position. Wow. That's a... You know, Shane, like, you can't disprove that that's... I can't disprove that that's wrong. Excuse me. Can't disprove that you're wrong there. It's probably the way it is. And it's a big cover-up. You know, one of the fun things about being me, I don't know if it's actually fun. One of the things about being me is I'm not an academic. I just fake it on Twitch. Very well sometimes. and in other places. But, like, I'm always... and this is rude of me, I know. But I've told people in the past, I just take imposter syndrome and I run with it. Because I know everyone else is, like, struggling to be a philosopher. And, like, I don't care. I'm not an academic. I don't have to care, like, what people think of me. And so I'm just like, I will just outrun you as an imposter. I'll do my philosophy better than you. And I'll just, like, outrun your imposter syndrome. So it's like, yeah. It's like I use the imposter syndrome to my benefit because other people are all struggling to do it. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't have to give a fuck. I'm just gonna do it. See, you're an academic. I just fake not being one. Yeah. There you go. Evolve yourself. Shane says, as someone who is the barest minimum of an academic, I can promise you that you are more academic than a shit ton of people that are academic. No, I know that. Like, it's funny, but when I walk into, like, a room of, like, you know, people who are, like, professional philosophers, like professors and stuff, they don't know that. And so I'm just, like, walking and I'm like, screw you guys, I'll say whatever the fuck I want. So, yeah, I used to also say I wasn't a philosopher. You were born in the imposter. Yeah, you're just sus, Valpo. What was I gonna say? Shit, whatever. Oh, yeah, I used to say I wasn't a philosopher because, you know, I'm not an academic. And then I got yelled at by, like, a world-class logician. He's like, no, no, he says, you have to say you're a philosopher. I was like, okay, sorry I said that then. It's like, I don't get to claim I'm not a philosopher anymore. Or else I'm going to get yelled at again. Yeah. Imposters. Wow, I'm losing it. Yikes. Okay, this is why I didn't want to read a very long paper. Voice is starting to go. Imposter syndrome has not been a focus of philosophical inquiry, although there are interesting informal discussions of imposter syndrome as suffered by academic philosophers. Oh yeah, Amy Olberding is great. She does blog posts sometimes. They are fantastic. She used to have her own blog. She did a guest post on the Daily News recently, and she does have some other public philosophy. I suggest everyone go look up any of her stuff. It is like premium public philosophizing, I in my opinion. Following the lead of philosophical writers on conspiracy theories. Actually, you know what? Yeah. So if anyone hasn't seen any of her public philosophy, I suggest you go look her stuff up. That's her name. Following the lead of philosophical writers on conspiracy theories, however, we can formulate a definitional question. Should the term imposter syndrome be reserved for imposter beliefs, which are false and or unjustified, or should we offer a neutral account of imposter syndrome in terms of the content of such beliefs, leaving it open whether imposter syndrome is sometimes, often, or always irrational? My own view is that the beliefs associated with imposter syndrome are often justified, even for people who have external markers of success. Many of us grapple with very mixed feedback, which can make it perfectly reasonable to doubt our own capabilities. And this is what I play off of. I don't get this feedback from other people. I just get rejections from journals, but I don't give a fuck about that at this point. And so, like, I don't actually have the imposter syndrome feedback loop of mixed feedback, and you can't quite tell what's going on. I just have negative feedback, but I don't give a fuck. In any case, I will use the term imposter thinking as a shorthand for the type of beliefs and thought processes characteristic of the sufferer from imposter syndrome, without prejudice as to whether such beliefs are false or unjustified, and I will use imposter thinker as a term for someone who habitually thinks this way. As with conspiracy theorizing, the main thrust of empirical research on imposter thinking is to understand the environmental and psychological factors which seem to promote it. For example, imposter thinking may be associated with perfectionism or neuroticism, and with certain types of parental attitudes towards childhood achievements. As with conspiracy theories, the content of imposter beliefs play a crucial role in such explanations. It seems that imposter thinkers are drawn to the belief that they are professionally inadequate, not primarily because of its source or its evidential base, but because of its content. For example, because it coheres with their own perfectionism or with their idea about talent. For example, that talented people succeed through effortless superiority, not through hard work. Yeah, and this is a problem in philosophy, because there's a sociological problem in philosophy where there's like sort of the golden child, where like certain people are sort of like glommed onto as like someone who just effortlessly does philosophy. Like, if you think that any of the shit you're seeing me do right now came easy, you are wrong. I've worked my ass off, okay? Yeah, pedigree, as Aristotle says. And so there's a big problem in philosophy that there's some sort of just like golden child with like perfect pedigree and just does the philosophy, and what they say is just like gonna be wisdom. But like if anybody thinks that's like easy, that's usually not the case. And like I've worked my ass off to be able to understand philosophy. So it's like just because I can sit here and read it and talk about it does not mean that like this just like somehow was an easy process. Nothing's easy at all. Yeah, genius myth, absolutely. It mostly is just crap. Absolutely Valpo. I suggested earlier that conspiracy theorizing is associated with a distinctive approach both to evidence gathering and to the updating of beliefs in light of evidence. Conspiracy theorists do not accept the reliability of standard or official sources of information about the events that they are concerned with, since it is an element of the theory that such sources are knowingly or unknowingly reporting the cover-up story rather than the real truth. Evolve Yourself says, yeah, same here. I had to fight every step of the way. Yeah, like, I'm still battling in some sense. Like, I don't have to be doing this. I could be doing something else, and I'm still just like, screw it. I'm going to get better at explaining stuff, like, every day. Because that's always been my struggle, is I fail at explaining things. Like, I get to a point, and then beyond that point, like, I can't seem to explain anything, and people are like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's like, every day, like, a little bit more, a little bit better insight into how to explain things to people. Second, conspiracy theories provide resources for explaining away seeming counter evidence. In the eyes of the conspiracy theorists, as goes more indication of how widespread and successful the cover-up operation has been. Third, conspiracy theorists seize upon errant data or apparent anomalies, that is, events and information which, while they may be logically consistent with the official story, seem nevertheless somewhat strange or unexplained in the light of that story. We can recognize these three features in imposter thinking too. By definition, those who think this way do so in the face of at least some positive feedback about their own performance and talents. Imposter thinkers have passed exams, have been offered professional jobs or promotions, have been invited to publish or exhibit their creative work, and so on. Yet they do not believe that they have the underlying talent or capability so normally associated with these external credentials. To make sense of this, imposter thinkers must regard external markers of success as untrustworthy guides to underlying talent in their own case. Depending on the individual or her situation, this may be rationalized by thinking of others as poor or inattentive judges of talent, or by thinking of them as dishonestly willing to praise what they do not genuinely regard as good work. So, just as conspiracy theorists reject standard or official sources as unreliable, imposter thinkers reject the standard external sources of information about their talents as unreliable guides to truth. You know what's interesting? I just thought of this. This is the social media problem nowadays. It's that you only see the best of everyone else, and you know all of your own failures, but you only see like the really high end good pictures, or like the, you know, the best things posted that everyone else does. So you're comparing all your, you know, hard times that you know about to everyone's like top result, and social media gathers all the top results together, so it looks like there's always top results out there, which is of course not the case. I've seen other people write about this before, but most of these people have huge numbers of failures, especially in academia, huge numbers of rejections that you just don't see, and so, but that does, of course, doesn't make for interesting social media posts. And so it's the social media nowadays is skewing things towards you know, seeing all the prettiest results, when of course that's not the truth, and you of course know your failures, and you're comparing your, you know, maybe better than average success rate to the perfect success rate that is displayed on social media, which is just not true for any one person. Okay, this is not just an incidental aspect of imposter thinking, but it is built in from the start. Imposter thinkers know that they have high grades, for example. They are not oblivious to this evidence, but they nevertheless attribute such successes to their being likable or hardworking or lucky in ways in which others mistake for talent. Second, imposter thinkers are not impressed by new evidence of their talents as they get the next prize or promotion or pass another exam. They've already established to their own satisfaction that such events are not a genuine guide to talent, at least in their own case, and so more of the same is unpersuasive. Oddly, whilst imposter thinkers regard themselves as inadequate in their professional roles, they simultaneously regard themselves as unusually perceptive about exactly this inadequacy, just as conspiracy theorists regard themselves as unusually perceptive about how the world really works. And this is what I mean. I think this is getting played into in the social medias because you're seeing only more of yourself, but you're not seeing more of other people. And so you are more perceptive about your own failures, but that's because you're getting a whitewashed view of the rest of the world through the external indicators in some sense. Thus, imposter thinkers differ from those who are hesitant to believe in their own talents on the basis of early success, but who are gradually led to self-belief through the accumulation of more such evidence. For imposter thinkers, further accolades may instead deepen the association anxiety by increasing the potential penalty when the supposed incompetence is finally unmasked. Yeah, so you're just worried about your fraud always being unmasked, which is an uncomfortable feeling. Third, as with conspiracy theorists, imposter thinkers may seize upon and prize anomalies such as occasional failures or negative feedback. Someone not in the grip of imposter thinking will either disregard these as meaningless glitches or else see in them opportunities to refine their talents and improve still further. No, fuck you, reviewer 2. Just go fuck yourself, reviewer 2. That's the right response. But the imposter thinker will see these failures as revelatory and her true lack of talent. On such occasions, the mask slips, confirming her suspicions about her true inadequacy. So, in summary, imposter thinking involves a distinctive pattern of distrust in certain standard sources of information, trust in one's own capacities to perceive one's own inadequacies, and exaggerated trust in external sources of negative feedback. Once adopted, imposter beliefs are hard to shake off because they dictate a self-reinforcing attitude to encounters with new evidence. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know if anyone's following all of this, but I mean, yeah, I get what's going on here. These are sort of like these self-reinforcing, standalone sort of psychologies that are acting at the level of how you trust evidence in the world. And one of them is directed out externally, that you think you know how the world is, and the other one's directed internally, that you also think you know how the world is, but one's negative and one's sort of positive, you know more about the world. Well, no, they're both you know more about the world, but one of them is treating everyone else as idiots and the other one's treating you as idiots. Shane says, so the moral of the story is that our brains develop patterns of behavior that are hard to disregard because they wrap up our identities. Yeah, and I mean, that's the general thing. I mean, there's, I guess, maybe more specific stuff here, and they went over these three aspects, but that's the big picture, is that you can get yourself stuck in a way of thinking because once you get in that way of thinking, it classifies how you classifies new evidence in a certain way, and the new evidence just feeds into that way of thinking. So it's a epistemological trap you've fallen into. A way to classify new evidence is faulty, and once you do that, it self-reinforces the faultiness. So, alright, I expect them to actually describe that here. Let's see, we've got, a few pages to go on the reflections. Conspiracy theorists and imposter thinkers have distinct beliefs about contingent empirical facts, and these beliefs have consequences for their epistemic practices. Aristotle says, good take, shows how thoughts interact with existential issues. Yeah, good take. Oh, you're talking about Shane? Yeah, Shane has good take. I'm just talking about whatever. Maybe I also have a good take, but I can't tell anymore because I'm losing my mind. It's getting towards the end of stream time. Anyway, conspiracy theorists reject standard sources of information about the evidence which interest them and have exaggerated trust in both both in their own perceptiveness and in anomalous pieces of evidence. Imposter thinkers reject standard sources of information about their own talent and have recursive epistemological error. That's scary. Yeah, but that's how like these psych things work. Like I've thought a little bit about this. Like you can get yourself stuck in like well, these are like loops of bad behavior, and it's epistemological in this case. But like, yeah, I mean it's gonna happen. It's people who are depressed. They did a study show also surprisingly high levels of accuracy and realism. The depression actually reinforces your ability to realistically view chances in the world. And so I heard this a few years ago, and it was right to me. But like when you are a realist or like you're depressed, you don't think of yourself as depressed. You think of yourself as a realist, and it reinforces you to look at certain like bad aspects in the world. But the problem is you never look at the good stuff either, but it really zeroes in on the bad aspects of like the world. And so it actually, depression and sadness can be very reinforcing because there's more certainty there than in being optimistic, when you don't know as much is going to happen, well, what's going to happen in the world. But like depression does zero in on more accurate facts about the world. Aristotle says, yeah, man, you see it all the time. Well, I guess fill my final. Might as well go eat a dozen chicken wings and get blackout drunk. Well, Trump got reelected. Might as well do whatever the fuck I want. Yeah, that's absolutely. Shane says, but if you convince yourself that you can't even trust your own initial judgment, then you really don't trust anything that doesn't give you the right dopamine spike. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's also very instructive that, you know, conspiracy theorists are looking for bigger conspiracies. They need more things to confirm what they believe, and so the conspiracy always is growing. I don't know about the imposter syndrome. Like, do you constantly are you always more and more afraid of getting found out, and then like everything that confirms that? I don't know if that's exactly the same, but I bet the conspiracy theorists are jumping from conspiracy to find another dopamine spike. Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah, so we have an exaggerated trust in both their own capacity to judge their talents and in anomalous pieces of evidence. This is a neat parallel, and it should be evident that this kind of pattern, substantive belief with self-reinforcing consequences for epistemic practice, and they highlight this themselves with the little dashy things, will be found in other domains too. For example, perhaps creationism paired with the idea that God has created the fossil record to test our faith fits this pattern. Perhaps so too can the beliefs of the victim of gaslighting, who believes that although it appears she is being badly treated by her partner, things only seem that way because she herself is oversensitive. Yeah, so this is the thing. You're gonna get this stuff other places. And this is a good point on the author. Or you're gonna get similar related phenomenon. Like if you're willing to believe in like some sort of like strange young earth theory, maybe you're willing to believe other things on like sort of shaky evidence. Yeah, and you can't even trust your initial judgments. I think that would go to the gaslighting point right here. So it's a problem. It sure is. Okay, what can we learn from such parallels? I do not suggest that there are substantive underlying psychological mechanisms in common between these varying phenomena. I've found no reason to suppose that imposter thinking encourages conspiracy theorizing or vice versa. Indeed, I have emphasized the way in which the substantive content of conspiracy beliefs or imposter beliefs is central to their adoption and maintenance. This substantive content is of course different in each case. Nevertheless, I do think that testing the extent and limits of these comparisons can prompt creative thinking both about imposter syndrome and about conspiracy theorizing, partly by defamiliarizing each phenomena through abstracting away from the usual questions. Alright, big up to philosophy. Look at all they're problematizing the issue. I mean, does that really fix anything? I don't know. But like, yes, this is what philosophers do. We problematize stuff and then think we've done something by making it a problem. Okay. For example, I've already suggested that the philosophical debate about neutral versus pejorative definitions of conspiracy theory should have a counterpart in the debate about the definition of imposter syndrome and about whether sufferers from that syndrome are by definition thinking irrationally. Likewise, Kassam's discussion of the intellectual vices associated with conspiracy thinking should help us think more carefully about whether, when imposter syndrome does embody flawed thinking, this is best understood in terms of lack of justification for imposter beliefs or in terms of intellectual vices of the imposter thinker. I mean, this is the thing. Yeah, we can talk about all this stuff, but like we're gonna have to like really get into it to see if any of them are useful. So, shifting focus, we can consider whether there is a scope for cross-fertilization of empirical research programs. This is where we can get something. If the philosophers can point out these like similarities, then we can get the scientists on board. We'll be like, hey, look at this other phenomena that you could probably repurpose your research to, and then the scientists will listen. Recall that recent psychological research into conspiracy theorizing can be framed as a search for epistemic, existential, and social motives for what are regarded as otherwise puzzling beliefs. That is, conspiracy beliefs are seen as responses to various needs in the subject. Prima facie, it might seem peculiar to regard sufferers from imposter syndrome as motivated to adopt self-critical beliefs, since those very beliefs cause them distress. But there are some suggestive connections. No, yeah, this is a good idea, because now you can look at this in a similar framework and see what's the same and what's different and maybe understand it better. Epistemic motives include a desire to make sense of one's experiences. If the imposter thinker mistakenly believes that genuinely talented people never struggle to succeed, yet notices that things don't always come easy for her, then she may be drawn to the explanation that she is not genuinely talented, but has somehow fooled others into thinking she is. Existential motives include a desire for control. Perhaps we can see imposter thinkers as reluctant to make their self-image hostage to the whims of other people's judgments and praise. I think this is right. Like, they might be a little bit worried that other people are controlling their lives. Like, they're out of control. And so it's easier to think of other people as making mistakes as opposed to thinking that, shit just happens sometimes. You're sociologically titillated. I'm happy you're titillated. Conspiracy thinking seems more tempting when people lack control over aspects of their lives. Perhaps imposter thinking is also tempting when we lack control. Yeah, because it's a rationalization of the situation. It's making you feel like you understand what's going on when perhaps things are well beyond your control. Social motives include group identity. Being amongst a minority in one's professional context may be a trigger for imposter thinking. Yeah, I mean, I don't actually know, but I've definitely seen online people from minority groups in philosophy saying that this is a problem for them. Because, again, there's no, group of for them to be part of, and so it reinforces them being a minority that also they are not in the in-group in philosophy. So if they're not in the in-group in philosophy, maybe they're not in the in-group in terms of imposter syndrome, and that will play into it. Wow, I'm losing it. Comparisons between conspiracy theorizing or imposter thinking may also help us understand why it is so difficult to exchange these patterns of thought through dialogue. Each phenomenon involves doubting the reliability of standard sources of information, so there is little prospect of changing someone's mind by providing more evidence from those same old types of sources. It is difficult to find evidential common ground in either case, to agree to a neutral pool of evidence from which to draw conclusions. For example, in speaking to someone prone to imposter thinking, it is unlikely to be useful to draw her attention to her qualifications and achievements, since she is already primed to reject evidence of that type, regarding it as systematically misleading. Likewise, in speaking to someone prone to conspiracy theorizing, it's unlikely to be useful to draw her attention to news reports in the mainstream media or to the testimony of conventional experts, since she is already primed to reject all of this. Aristotle says, the mind has a natural inclination to want to explain everything and wrap it into a coherent whole, but sometimes there's luck involved, and sometimes people do really weird shit that doesn't make sense. On the one hand, as an academic, I really want to explain as much as I can, but on the other hand, as an aspiring good person, I think sometimes you just gotta be honest to the vagueness and ambivalence of life. You know what's funny, Aris? Reading your paragraph there was so much easier than reading the academic words on screen. And absolutely, sometimes it's not all philosophy. Sometimes it's just life is not exactly gonna fit into the easy explanation. It's going to be more complicated. It's going to be messy, and you got to somehow accept that. I mean, I'm always on the chaos side of the world. Like, people want to rationalize things. I'm like, no, the world is more chaotic. And, than like we're gonna do. So I'm on the tragedy side of theorizing, not the rational side of theorizing. If you want to go to the old like Nietzschean distinction that like Socrates was trying to rationalize things, I'm on the things are more chaotic, just like the tragedies. So yeah, Heraclitus. Oh man, there was an interesting Heraclitus quote, which oh man, it got wet, that I wrote down. I was thinking about it earlier today. I got my little Heraclitus quoter here too. Yeah. Yeah, you can't quit them. Corpses are more fit to be thrown out than dung. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we get plenty of that, Valpo. So I'm happy to provide as much as I can. Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of this is the on all sides. The desire to, the natural inclination, as you put it, to wrap up everything into a coherent whole. And yeah, I'm not. I don't think I've lost most of that. I'm not trying to do that shit anymore. Yeah, it's not. It's like you're gonna have a bad time if you're really trying to get everything into a coherent whole. Okay. If we understand both conspiracy theorizing and imposter syndrome, imposter thinking in terms of trust and distrust, it is not surprising that just more evidence is often not enough to shift a person's perspective in these domains. One strategy would be to reduce our emphasis on rational persuasion, instead look at the emotional and social circumstances which make these kinds of thinking attractive, or at least better than the alternatives. Valpa says chaos doesn't have to be bad. It makes room for freedom. Yeah, I'm definitely more on that side of things. I'm not saying chaos is bad. I'm just saying the over-rationalization is definitely bad. But like, yeah. Yeah, I don't have any sense that there's any grand, like, structure to things usually. So it's like people say, oh, like, don't you think like we're going to figure this out? I'm like, I have no fucking clue what we're going to figure out. We might figure out something, but is it like big? I have no idea. But whether or not we are seeking to change others' minds in both contexts, it is useful to consider the social epistemic environment. What sort of conditions may encourage imposter thinking or conspiracy theorizing? First, such thinking will be attractive where standard information sources seem to be mutually coordinated or to be motivated by goals other than conveying the truth. Coordination amongst sources means that apparently new information does not offer any independent reason to doubt either the conspiracy theory or the imposter belief. Meanwhile, if conspiracy theorists or imposter thinkers believe that the sources of information have some ulterior purpose, then they will not find them epistemically persuasive. Conspiracy theorists, of course, are likely to assume a negative ulterior purpose. Imposter thinkers may believe that people around them are trying to be kind or helpful, but not by offering them the harsh criticism they really deserve, or they may believe the others are restrained by political correctness or fear of giving offense. Valpa says, yeah, I'm with you. I just read a paper that just assumed order is better than chaos or uncertainty. Yeah, and I find that very common. Like, I mean, not to bash religious people, but like there's like God's purpose in the world. And so it's like there's a whole crew of like people who just sort of take that as, canon. And like I disagree with that. It's like fine. But and then there's other people who are, they're just sort of metaphysically oriented to that way, that they sort of, it doesn't have to be religious, of course, but like they just sort of think like, the world makes sense. These are sort of like the scientific worldview where we're making progress, the positivistic sort of view. And I don't know if we're actually doing much of that at all. I think we're making a little bit of progress, but not like in the way that the scientists think we are. So it's like the assumption I just find to be excessive. As you're saying, that there's some sort of assumed order. There might be some order and we get it right sometimes, but I'm not exactly sure where it's going. How did the paper handle entropy? This paper? Or what paper? They're not handling entropy. They're basically saying that people are ignoring it in, like, here in general. I feel like they're, the universe is falling apart? Oh, you're on board with that? Okay, cool, evolve yourself. Valpo. Oh, you're asking Valpo. Okay. Well, ask Valpo. Valpo, you'll let Shane know. Yeah. Yeah, so the question here is also in terms of this, like, why are people acting this way? That's one of the things about, if you think everyone is acting out of political correctness or fear of giving offense, that does happen, but that's kind of like a very small scale conspiracy theory that if you think everyone is restrained by political correctness or fear of giving, why does that keep happening? Fear of giving offense, then, yeah, that is sort of conspiracy theorish. Okay. Second, an environment in which what's said is not reflected in what's done will likely encourage conspiracy theorizing or imposter thinking depending on the context. We form our beliefs on the basis of a large, complex set of evidence, including what people and institutions do, as well as what they say. For an imposter thinking, if warm words about her performance or achievement are not made concrete in action, for example by invitations, promotions, or reliance, it will be easy to dismiss them as just words. Likewise, it's no wonder if conspiracy theorists are encouraged in their beliefs when governments or politicians profess to have citizens' best interests at heart, yet do not seem to behave as if this were true. They tried to explain with fractal structures, you weren't convinced. Yeah, that's gonna be hard. That's gonna be a hard sell. Third, an environment where distrust in the official story is rewarded may promote conspiracy or imposter thinking. Conspiracy theorists seem to benefit from their attitudes via enhanced self-regard, identification with a group, or a sense of self-control. A sense of control, not self-control. Sense of control. Or at least they may hope for such benefits even if they are often not realized. For imposter thinkers, there may be social rewards for modesty, including perhaps continued or re-emphasized praise from others, and penalties for boasting or self-assurance in ways which are affected by perceived gender and race. Yeah, I think this is a good point, that this is sensitive to, like, there's cultural things that are going on here with describing your own achievements. Fourth, an environment in which anomalies or disinformation are not challenged or not given proper contextualization will again feed a tendency to conspiracy or imposter thinking. In the context of conspiracy theorizing, this brings us to difficult questions about the role of media, education, and free speech. But for imposter thinking, the point is that it may make a significant difference how all of us frame and respond to negative comments, unfair criticism, or indeed fair criticism. Imposter thinkers are prone to giving undue weight to negative feedback, even when this is set in context of generally positive feedback. My idea is not that negative feedback should be eliminated, but that it may matter more than we realize how such feedback is presented, since it cannot easily be balanced by sheer quantity of accompanying positive feedback. This is a good point. Like, how do you actually deal with the anomalies? And that is a very hard question, especially in like scientific reasoning. When you have like experiments that go wrong, there's always a way to fit in. It's called epicycles. If you thinking about like evolve yourself. If you think of epicycles, there's in philosophy of science, there's always a way to rationalize something that doesn't fit in with the general story of, like, either in philosophy of science or the epicycles work, or in the sort of like the social feedback loop of how your work is being taken. So like how you actually take on alternative like evidence is a big problem in philosophy of science, and it's also here. And so this is a good point that they're making here. Like how you actually deal with this is a difficult question, and it's been, it's talked about in other areas too. Finally, the parallels between conspiracy theorizing. Scientists can always create ad hoc auxiliary hypotheses to support their theory. Yeah, that's that's the right way of saying it. Thank you, Evolve Yourself. Finally, the parallels between conspiracy theorizing and imposter thinking should lead us to re-examine why the default mainstream response to the former is critical or dismissive, whilst the latter is more sympathetic. One difference is that imposter thinkers seem to suffer from their beliefs in a way which conspiracy theorists often do not. But this cannot be the whole story. Conspiracy theorists are not always made happy by their beliefs, and in general, we do not resent people who are made happy by we do not resent people who are made happy by beliefs we do not share. Yeah, I don't. I don't think conspiracy theorists are like particularly happy with their world. They don't like the idea that their world is being controlled by like some Illuminati. So yeah, like they're not happy about this. They're happy about the like short term, like, oh, I figured it out, but they're not happy that the world is controlled by Illuminati. Like that's not a good thought, that like you're like there's this like super class of people that are just like controlling everything. More likely, conspiracy thinking is perceived to be socially more dangerous than imposter thinking. For example, it seems to be easily spread and to undermine trust in institutions and mainstream media in ways which are difficult to recover from. In particular instances, it is of course right and natural to feel outraged by conspiracy theorists who accuse grieving families of being crisis actors. Wow, right there. So, there we go. But imposter thinking is also a damaging social phenomenon insofar as it prevents people from enjoying their professional lives and achievements. Indeed, it is a problem for all of us if people hold themselves back from opportunities to contribute to collective endeavors, especially where such reluctance is disproportionately found in groups that are in any case socially disadvantaged. Conspiracy theories and imposter syndrome are not the same thing, but I hope to have illustrated that each separately is a worthy topic for philosophical investigation, and one way of pursuing such investigations is to explore the structural similarities between these phenomena. Alright, that was fun. Shane says, I don't know the answer to this, but could some people be reticent to abandon conspiracy theories because as an individual they desire to feel sad, weak, lacking agency? What do you mean? Like they don't desire? They want to feel powerful, of course, but like they want to feel like that they're under the control of some sort of like political, conspiracy. Some people are masochists, sure. Some people might, again, they like the idea of knowing what's going on, but they dislike the idea. Like my sense is they like the idea that they understand what's going on and they can fight the man, but they find it preferential to be out of control. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I assume a lot of people don't want to be in control of their lives because that's scary. I mean, I find that this is like, it's unfair to religious people, but this is what gets said, that people are using their religion as a crutch because God has a plan and they're not in control of their own lives. It's God's plan and they're just going to do it. So yeah, but of course people, they don't want to be in control because control means they have to take responsibility too, and that's hard. And to be fair, this sentence right here, I just want to point out, indeed is a problem for all of us if people hold themselves back from opportunities to contribute to collective endeavors, especially where it's like, yeah, this is it. And I've screwed myself up because I didn't think I was qualified or stuff before. And I'm not technically, I don't have like the letters next to my name, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't have been able to do something. It just means I'd have to do it differently. And I've had other opportunities in general in the past where I've missed out on stuff because, whatever reason. So it's like, this is a general problem, and it's worse for, of course, people who suffer from imposter syndrome professionally. But it's like, this is a good point. It's like, there are a lot of opportunities, and don't be telling yourself that you're not going to make it. Let them tell you you're not going to make it. And I got to remind myself of that at times. Yeah, you don't know how right it is, but as a feeling of potential rightness. Yeah, it's like, there's enough people out there that I'm sure you're going to get a few of them that are going to be like this. How widespread, I don't know. And there's probably something to be known there. If we understood this better, then we could definitely help a good percentage of people, So if we understood any of this better, then we could at least, organize ourselves better socially in society so that people like this wouldn't get, basically wasting their time on stupid ideas. Are there people alive today that would feel better as an individual in their identity if they don't feel like they have any power at all? Yeah. I'd actually expect so. Um, yeah, again, these are people who are just, they are afraid or they don't want the power because they're more afraid of like themselves. And if you absolve them of like taking responsibility, like absolute responsibility, they might be feeling better about things that they have like no longer have the responsibility. Yeah, evolve yourself, exactly. Happiness and slavery. It's like, but like this is the old ignorance is bliss argument too. That if you knew less, you would be just like happier. So it's like you're giving up the power that comes with knowledge, but in turn you get like less knowledge, but in some sense the world is going to determine more of your life for you because you have less agency, but you're happier about it because it's just like things happen and it's cool. So yeah. But yeah, I think ignorance is bliss actually comes down to this. It's like some people be like, yeah, I don't want to know any more shit. Like, I don't need to deal with this. Like, more problems? No, thank you. I'll just let it be someone else's problem. And then, even if it would give them more power, like more agency, more control over their life, then, yeah. Yeah, Katherine Hawley. He died last year, I guess. Or 2 years ago now. Yeah, and so it's funny, and we got to end up on the Alex Jones right here too. The outrage by conspiracy theorists who accuse grieving families of being crisis actors. I mean, and is Alex Jones a menace to society? Yes, he is. And he's gonna appeal the $50 million fine that he got. And it's just going to go down and it's going to be all bullshit. I hope it all just sticks because the guy is such a scumbag. Like, such a scumbag. And, I hope everyone, like, that's been involved in these sort of conspiracies against the poor parents who lost their kids, I hope they all get what's coming to them. Yeah, so, I mean, if you want to compare papers like this one and the last one, this is, this is like a straight up philosopher talking about philosophy stuff, not as much philosophy of language. And it's interesting because, it's like this person, like Katherine Hawley, does all the technical is obviously technically skilled here. He's like talking about like structural analysis of two different concepts, this whole paper, but then it's talking about in relation to different social and technical ideas as they're going along just in this thing. So we're talking about like different conspiracy theories, different ways of understanding this. This is a competent like philosopher who knows what the hell they're doing. And so it's like, do I think this is like groundbreaking shit? Not like super groundbreaking or anything, but like it's just really well done. It's like, are we gonna like, is the next philosophical breakthrough gonna be about imposter syndrome? Probably not, but it's an interesting thing to talk about. But it's a very cool approach. You'd be more descriptive, but you'll accept scumbag. Yeah, I mean, fucking scumbag. Not. He probably does fuck. I don't want to say that about his wife, but I suspect she's just as bad too. They're both scumbags. Yeah. There's a bad joke I'm not going to make there about text messaging people and things, and I'm not even going to say what I was going to say because it's bad. But yeah, don't know how closely you've been following some of the news surrounding Alex Jones and his phone. An infected fistula in the rectum of social media in America. Well said, Shane. Well said. But yeah, but like you can see, this paper comes off as more well-rounded philosophically than like the last one. The other one was like super hyper focused. This one is more like we can talk about different aspects of society at the same time in similar ways and learn things about, like, or at least think about these things, and to figure out what is actually going on with, like, how beliefs can turn into self-reinforcing epistemic practices, which is something like that is important both for psychology and philosophy. So, what was that? Okay, nothing too important. So this is the sort of thing, like how do we have like these two sort of things that are completely separate, then also come to form together a more interesting psychological pattern that or epistemic that changes the way we think about the world. And this is interesting because that also goes into like how thoughts are formed and how we understand knowledge. And so this is like an interesting thing because it has both philosophical, like on terms of like the metaphysics and the theory of knowledge about us, but also has like actual application in how we research these things. So yeah, this is less technical work, but in some sense more philosophically interesting to me because it touches more problems, like big philosophical problems. So even though it's not doing the technical philosophy of language, this, like, I mean, the other stuff was like, it was Grice and talking about how the actual thing works in the theory, like talking about like what where the meaning is and what constitutes meaning in under certain implicatures, and how people accept it or not. Whereas this one's talking about epistemology and society and also psychology all at once, and so, and doing it well. You don't feel like you're overwhelmed in this paper. At least I didn't feel like they're like hitting you over the head with this one. You quite like this one? I'm glad. Can thank Rethius for suggesting aliens, and so I got to conspiracy theories. So this is a nice paper on conspiracy theories. Yeah, I this would be another one I'd recommend. Not like super hard recommend, but I'd recommend this as just like something to read, like good philosophy. So, does anyone out there have a raid target? I mean, I can go look.